Alright friends and foes, today I have a plan. I want to introduce you to the art of painting silly little army men. It's something I hesitated to make because there are so many good tutorials out there, but I realized something. It seems that a lot of people paint in a very different method. While they produce great results, they make things a little bit too formulaic and scientific for me. Now, if that works for you, hell yeah, keep going, don't stop. But for me, I need things to be a lot looser. I want things to be accessible. I thrive in a vibes-based economy around here. It's an artistic expression and not just following a recipe. You feel me? So for today, I want to give everyone that might be looking to get into this hobby a solid place to start. I might have cheated slightly and already built this guy off camera, but right here we have your standard Assault Intercessor Marine. As you can see, I already have this guy built. There is some texture paste on the base too. For that, I really like to use the Tamiya stuff because it's got a great texture and for a great value. You can use the Citadel stuff too, like Sterling Mud or whatever. But I just primed over this right along with our little spaceman, so we have full freedom over the colors here. I'm getting ahead of myself though. We have a built Marine. We have the most important choice of our life up next. What chapter is this guy? Now, I asked around and got some fun suggestions like Rainbow Warriors, Exorcists, Howling Griffins, or my personal favorites for the Loyalists, the Lamenters. While all of these are dope and swag, I think it'll be even better to grab one of the main Loyalist chapters here. I think that might be a little bit more likely for somebody new to choose, and you know what? Space vampires are awesome. We're going Blood Angels. Also, it helps that I love painting red. The plan is simple. We got some red armor, a yellow helmet, some black details. The thing I really want to stress here before we dive into painting this little fella is that I'm not painting this for competition. I don't care about having perfect blends or anything like that. Like I said before, it's an artistic expression and vibes based. On top of that, if you look at real traditional art, things don't have to be smoothly blended. They can be. The results are super impressive. But it's just not my preference. And also, if I tried to do that in every model, I would never finish a single squad. So we want dramatic and dynamic colors. That's what's going to be very eye-catching here and make the guy look awesome. Color is everything. And for a small disclaimer here, my goal is a basic troop painting. Get you guys tabletop ready. I didn't mess with any decals or freehanding on this fella. As you get more comfortable or want to try a little bit harder for your character models or want to invest a little bit extra time, we could get into that in the future. Anyway, let's get into this. I've yapped enough. We've got our built model here, primed black. Black works really well as our base here because it can let you get away with a couple things. This is your first model, right? Maybe you don't have the steadiest hands, the brush control isn't pro level yet. With black, you could get away with maybe missing some of these little cracks and crevices that could be annoying to paint. We can also focus on the big picture here. That's the stuff I like. Also, starting darker lets us build up our colors in layers, which gives us a little bit more control than if you start bright and have to bring it down. This is very color dependent though. As you'll learn, as your painting adventure goes on, there are some colors that just have very low pigment. It's just the nature of certain colors. Tends to be the brighter ones, like I'm sure you've heard people complaining about colors like red, yellow, orange, white. Well, we're going to be using a couple from that list today. So we have our prime little lad here. The first thing I'm going to do is completely optional, and you could skip this and go right to the red, but trust me on this. We're going to be using the Great and Powerful Color Wheel. Years of drinking my paint water has led to these visions into the color spectrum that cannot be contained. Okay, so check this out. We have our color wheel. Obviously, our main color is red. Our helmet is yellow. The most basic of color theories that you should use is finding your contrasting colors. If you look where the red and yellow are on the wheel, there's another color right across the way, blue, that makes this triangle. The third that will complete our primary color scheme here. But now I can hear you all screaming and shouting at me, but Kyle, where do you put the blue? The armor's supposed to be red with the yellow helmet. That's the secret, friends. You can put it anywhere. Blue pouches, blue sword, silly blue shoes, why not? What I'm gonna do here is use blue in the shadows. Using dark contrasting colors in the shadows and recesses will give a lot more visual interest than your standard black. It feels like it does a little magic trick to your peepers, where you might not understand exactly why, but it just looks more interesting than the other. Deeper shadows, more interesting colors on top of it, all that wonderful stuff. And it's a great way to add a lot of interest to a generic line troop like this. With all of that, we're covering everything in dark Prussian blue. Just a little bit of water on the brush and hitting this guy all over. As for the thickness of the paint, you don't want it watery, but also no brush strokes and textures in the paint, you know? It's not a science, we go by feel here. It's just paint, you could always redo the stuff. Anyway, we want blue shadows, so this freak's getting covered. After that, we're getting to the real meat and potatoes here, the red. I have two reds that I really recommend. Chimera's The Red and Procryl's Orange Red. Very rich, strong pigments in these. They're always my go-tos. So we're grabbing a red, slapping it on there. I used Chimera's on this one. Since there's a big surface area to cover here, we need to make big moves. I'm doing one model now, but these guys are usually in squads of 5, right? For this method of painting, I'm taking a bigger brush, one of my dry brushes. And to paint this, we want just a little bit of paint on the brush here. Not quite dry brushing if you've heard of that technique, but also not dousing the model. We're going to build our red up with a couple layers. The first step, brush the red all over the man. As we add a couple layers to make this red more vibrant and strong, I'm going to focus on the parts where the light is hitting and build it up. It might take a couple layers. That's just the nature of red, but it'll be worth it. And luckily doing this in the faster, not quite dry brush type of way is actually very fast. Okay, the red is applied. A solid coat, and you can already see in the little armpits and underbits the contrast of the blue to red. Now it's time to go even further beyond. Highlighting. Highlighting red can be kind of weird. When you're first getting into highlighting, it's very easy to assume that you just add white to your current color and it'll make it brighter. At least that's what I did. But white will actually desaturate the color, which won't be as vibrant. I want this guy bright. An orange works well, but something I like even more, my little secret weapon here, fluorescent red ink. To use the ink, I'm just going to mix it in a little by little into our red. Something to be aware of here is that if you use this method, inks are great and very pigment dense, but it's an ink. They're very thin, so when I use these, I usually don't use water to thin the paint. Just use the ink. Same technique as before, just focusing on the parts that are facing more upward, that the light will be hitting. Fluorescent paints tend to be a bit transparent, even a more pigment dense one like this. Just a couple coats, adding in a little bit more and a little bit more ink each time, till you get your desired brightness. Easy enough, right? With that part done, we are mostly done with this guy already. Time for our neat little yellow helmet. For this, I have another color theory trick. Yellow has pretty atrocious coverage, so what I'm going to do here first is paint on some dark hot pink. Then we go in with our yellow over the pink. It really helps bring out a richness to the yellow, and both those colors, with the blue in the shadows, it works really well with all those contrasts. It's just going to be a couple coats, since it's yellow. And somehow, we are already almost done. Just have some little details on the weapons. We're going to be going for black here on the weapons and leather pouches. The thing is, we don't want to actually use black. If you paint with black, there's no flexibility. You can't go any darker, and it kind of kills any chance of color depth that you could have to make your model more interesting. What we're going to use instead is very dark grays. Putting this over our dark blue base coat will keep that visual interest and have it appear black. And just like with the red and yellow, we're going to be getting a little bit lighter towards the top, light hitting parts. A dark silver metallic on the gun details and the chain of the chainsword, brighter silver for a highlight. Then the final detail on this guy are the eyes. Now we could just cheat and look at a normal Blood Angel here to see that they have green eyes, but if we pull up our color wheel again, we can see why it works. Directly across from our red is our complementary color of green. Since I want these to have a cool sci-fi glow, I'm going to stack my tiniest brush and hit the eyes with white first, then use a fluorescent green. Doing eyes is tough, and like we talked about before, fluorescents are pretty transparent. So, if you're not the neatest at this part, it can look a little bit like a glow effect. If you want it to be neater, have no fear, it's all just paint. You could always go back in with a little bit of yellow paint and paint over the little spots where you went outside the lines. Last but not least, just painted the ground and the base rim, then we're on to the spinny shots. Thank you all again for joining me today, friends and foes. I hope you guys liked this back to basics approach for all the new painters out there. Even for a more seasoned painter, this is how you want to paint 90% of your army, so they look dope on the tabletop. For reference, this guy took about 30 minutes, so it's very doable on the bigger army painting scale. But what's your favorite tip for new painters? Leave a comment. Don't forget to like and subscribe too, all of that is super appreciated. And I have a few more Space Marines left for my kill team. Which chapters should I paint next? Let me know in the comments. And with that, I'll see you in the next one.